The South China Sea glistened under a harsh midday sun, its deceptively calm waters concealing a battlefield of nerves. HMAS Warramunga, a Royal Australian Navy frigate, cut through the sea with methodical precision, its radar sweeping the skies while sonar pulsed into the dark beneath. Commander Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge, her eyes locked on the horizon. She'd served in tense waters before, pirate hunting in the Gulf of Aden, surveillance near the Korean peninsula. But this was different. This wasn't tension building, it was tension already lit. "Contact! 2 vessels, bearing 090, reported the tactical officer. "Confirmed Chinese Navy. Type 052D destroyers. They're closing distance." Mitchell gave a single nod, her tone measured. "Maintain course. Alert Fleet Command. Let them know we're not deviating from international waters." She didn't have to say it aloud. Every sailor aboard knew that they were pushing a line the Chinese had drawn, illegally in most of the world's view, across the ocean. The so-called 9-dash line wasn't law, but it had teeth. The radio crackled, then a cold, mechanical voice filled the bridge. "Australian warship, this is Chinese Navy vessel Nanchang. You are entering sovereign waters. Turn back immediately." Mitchell moved to the mic without hesitation. "Nanchang, this is HMAS Warramunga. We are operating in accordance with international maritime law. We will not deviate." No response followed, just a long silence, and then a slow increase in electronic interference. Jamming, subtle, deniable, deliberate. Down in the operations center, tension simmered. Radar screens flickered briefly, then stabilized. Ensign Kai Rowe, barely 2 years into his commission, ran a systems diagnostic. "They're hitting us with low-level disruption," he said. "No lock-ons yet." "Yet," echoed Lieutenant Commander Harris, Mitchell's executive officer. "They're poking." Mitchell descended into the ops center, her boots echoing against the steel floor. She surveyed the displays, her mind mapping the tactical picture. The Chinese ships weren't flanking, they were boxing in. Standard intimidation, but standard could still spiral. "Maintain readiness posture. Load decoys, but don't arm the main gun unless they do," she ordered. "And prepare message traffic. I want a sit rep to Canberra every 30 minutes. Outside, the Chinese destroyers grew clearer, their sleek gray hulls slicing through the sea with relentless confidence. One broke formation, angling starboard, just enough to suggest a block. The message was clear: turn around or we'll make you. Back on the bridge, Mitchell steadied herself. Every decision here could ripple into international headlines, or worse, a body count. She'd read every report, every account of close encounters in these waters. And she knew that if war ever started between major navies, it might not come from grand strategy, but from a captain making a call under pressure. "Nanchang is turning again. They're trying to cut across our bow," the tactical officer warned. Mitchell leaned forward, her voice low. "Helm, reduce speed to 1/4. Let them pass, but don't yield our course. We are not surrendering navigational rights." The moment stretched. From the deck, sailors could see the flag of the People's Republic rippling barely a kilometer away. The ocean was vast, but here it felt claustrophobic, choked by egos and steel. Inside the Chinese ship, Admiral Li Jun stood at his own command post. He watched the Australians' defiance with a mixture of irritation and calculation. He hadn't been ordered to engage, but he had been told to demonstrate assertive control. That phrase had haunted him since Beijing sent it down. It was as vague as it was dangerous. "Hold formation," Li told his officers. "No firing, but keep electronic targeting on them. Make them sweat." And it was working. On board the Warramunga, radiation sensors screamed softly in the background, passive indicators that targeting systems were active, but no missiles were locked. The electronic pressure was like a loaded gun pressed to the temple, finger not quite on the trigger. Mitchell tapped her fingers against the console, reading the crew's body language more than the displays. They were professionals, but they were human. She couldn't let uncertainty fracture their calm. Pipe down action stations, but keep air defense systems warmed up. No one makes the first move, but if we're fired on, we respond instantly. No hesitation. Harris leaned in. What if they ram us? That destroyer's damn close. Mitchell didn't blink. Then they hit a sovereign ship in international waters, and we record every second. The standoff dragged into its second hour, eyes strained against binoculars, knuckles whitened around consoles. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across steel decks and red-hot nerves. Then, without warning, a flare arced from the deck of the Chinese destroyer. Not aimed, not an attack. Just a signal, a message, a warning. Its eerie orange glow floated above the waves before hissing into the water. Mitchell exhaled slowly. They're not backing down, and they want us to know it. But neither was she. The section ends not with gunfire, but a stare down. A quiet line in the sea no one dared cross, yet. The question now wasn't if this would escalate. It was who would blink first. Aboard the HMAS Warramunga, the atmosphere was tight-wound. The Chinese destroyers had fallen back slightly, but they remained within visual range, ever present, ever watching. Commander Sarah Mitchell stood in the operations room, reviewing satellite imagery relayed from overhead assets. The images confirmed her suspicions. Additional Chinese vessels were repositioning nearby. This wasn't a routine show of force anymore. It was a developing net. Lieutenant Commander Harris entered with a tablet in hand, eyes tense. Fleet Command just updated ROE. We're authorized to maneuver defensively, but still no escalation. Canberra's trying to keep this diplomatic. Mitchell didn't look up. They're playing chess while we're dodging elbows. That destroyer nearly clipped our bow. 1 degree closer and we'd be calling in a distress code. Harris paused, choosing his words carefully. We all know what that would have meant. Silence stretched. The crew understood they were on a hair trigger, where the rules of engagement were clear only until someone broke them. Every move had to be perfect. Every word had to be exact. Meanwhile, on the Chinese destroyer Nanchang, Admiral Li Jun observed the Australians with calculated intent. His orders had been firm: show control, force withdrawal, but avoid direct engagement. He understood Beijing's thinking. They wanted to test the waters, probe for weakness, demonstrate dominance in disputed territory. But the Australians weren't folding. That irked him more than he let on. His junior officer approached with a hushed tone. New sonar contact, possibly an American submarine. Quiet, deep, no ID yet. Lee's expression hardened. Confirm with passive sensors. If it's theirs, then the game just changed. Beneath the waves, the USS North Dakota, a Virginia-class submarine, crept through the depths like a ghost. Its orders were simple: observe, track, and remain unseen unless absolutely necessary. On board, Commander Joseph Brandt leaned over a digital map, watching as acoustic signatures painted a vivid picture of the surface tension above. 2 planned destroyers, 1 Aussie frigate, and now we're in the middle of it, Brandt muttered. His sonar officer adjusted a dial. The Chinese are broadcasting sonar pings every 5 minutes. They're fishing. We're not invisible anymore. Brandt gave a tight smile. No, but we're still untouchable. For now. Above the surface, Mitchell paced as her comms officer raised his hand. Message from USS Ronald Reagan Battle Group. Carrier strike force en route from the Philippine Sea. ETA 12 hours. They're not coming in hot unless we give the signal. Mitchell allowed herself a short breath of relief. Air cover changed the equation, but that also meant the next 12 hours were theirs alone. Let's not be the spark before they arrive, she said. But prep our anti-ship missiles. I want targeting solutions running in the background, quietly. That evening, under a blood-orange sky, tensions reignited. The Nanchang made an aggressive turn. this time with a radar lock-on directed squarely at Warramunga. Not a missile lock, but close, an unmistakable threat. It was a line being crossed with intent. Mitchell responded in kind, instructing her team to jam all incoming fire control signals and deploy a single electronic countermeasure burst, a visible digital smoke signal that said, "We're not passive." The flare of radar jamming lit up both ships' combat systems. For a brief second, all targeting data was wiped. Chaos simmered just beneath the surface, but it didn't boil. Instead, Admiral Lee ordered a holding pattern, suspecting, correctly, that more eyes were watching. The appearance of American forces, or even confirmation of their presence, could swing the balance and humiliate his command. He couldn't let that happen. In the quiet that followed, something unexpected occurred. A civilian cargo vessel, the Yangtze Dawn, wandered into the contested space. Off course, lost, and unaware of the standoff playing out around it. Chinese radar pinged it, and the ship responded clumsily, its signals garbled. On the Warramunga, the bridge crew quickly picked up the vessel's trajectory. It was moving directly between the two naval forces, dangerously so. Mitchell grabbed the mic. "Contact the Dawn and warn them off. Get them out before one of these trigger-happy destroyers uses them as a justification." No response came. The cargo vessel's comms were either down or unmonitored. Without hesitation, she turned to Harris. "Launch the RHIB. We'll escort them out ourselves." Minutes later, a fast, inflatable boat skimmed across the water, carrying a small team of sailors toward the lumbering cargo ship. Through binoculars, Mitchell watched every move, her jaw clenched. The Chinese were watching too. She could see crew members on deck, scanning the scene. The Australians boarded the Yangtze Dawn, confirmed no distress, and began correcting its course. But even that neutral act carried weight. The Chinese could claim it was an illegal boarding in their waters. Mitchell knew the implications, and so did Lee. But the Admiral didn't act. He watched, calculated, and chose restraint, for now. Back on the Warramunga, the RHIB returned, the sailors soaked but unharmed. The cargo vessel slowly veered away, escorted by its uninvited guardians. Mitchell nodded, both proud and uneasy. "That could have gone sideways fast," Harris agreed. "We just played God in a minefield." The second section closed as darkness fell completely over the South China Sea. A standoff unresolved, a confrontation delayed. The balance hadn't tipped, but the scale was trembling. What neither side knew was that high above them, in geostationary orbit, satellite systems were feeding live data to decision-makers half a world away, and decisions were already being made. The third day began with a sharp drop in radio chatter across the contested waters. It wasn't peace. It was the breath before the plunge. Commander Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the HMAS Warramunga, scanning a horizon cloaked in morning haze. The Chinese vessels had shifted positions again, slowly forming a crescent around the Australian warship, tight enough to intimidate but wide enough to deny aggression. It was a pressure tactic, and it was working. Mitchell had slept for less than 3 hours. The relentless tension, the threat of escalation, the weight of representing her country's resolve, it all settled on her shoulders like iron. She sipped stale coffee from a steel mug, her mind already spinning through contingencies. The American carrier group was still 6 hours out, and every minute dragged like an hour. Down in the CIC, Lieutenant Commander Harris was directing a systems check when a faint alert lit up the console, an unregistered aerial contact approaching fast, low, and from the east. His voice cracked through the comms. "Unknown air contact, bearing 085, no IFF, altitude 200 feet, possible drone." Mitchell responded instantly. "Bring up visual tracking. Prep point defense systems, but hold fire." A grainy camera feed confirmed it. A small, fast-moving UAV, likely Chinese in origin, buzzed toward their location. It wasn't an attack drone, but it wasn't innocent either. The message was clear. We can see you. We can reach you. The drone turned away at the last moment, banking low over the water and disappearing into the fog like a ghost. No fire, no crash, just a psychological jab. Mitchell leaned on the console, jaw clenched. They're escalating without breaking the rules. They want us to overreact. Harris nodded. And they're getting close to making us do it. Meanwhile, aboard the Chinese destroyer Nanchang, Admiral Li Jun received a coded transmission from Beijing. It was blunt. Continue posture. Do not retreat. Project dominance without initiating kinetic engagement. He knew exactly what it meant. They wanted him to keep the Australians cornered long enough to claim diplomatic leverage at the upcoming regional summit. This wasn't just a standoff, it was theater, and every moment counted. Lee stared at the map. The Australians weren't flinching. And now, intelligence suggested American assets had entered the periphery of the area. If this escalated, it wouldn't be regional anymore, it would be global. Below the waves, the USS North Dakota had crept into optimal strike position. From their sonar console, the American crew had been silently tracking the movements of every surface ship above. Commander Brandt now had firing solutions on both Chinese destroyers. One button could alter history. His orders remained unchanged. Do not engage unless hostilities began. But he prepared, just in case. Back aboard the Warramunga, the tension reached a fever pitch. Another shift in formation brought one of the Chinese destroyers within 2 kilometers of their stern. Too close for comfort. Then came the move no one expected. The Nanchang launched a small inflatable boat, an unarmed RIB, carrying 3 men in naval uniforms. It cut across the waves directly toward the Warramunga, radioing a simple message. Desire communication. Request meeting, neutral deck. Harris blinked. They want to talk? Mitchell was already processing it. Not on their ship, not on ours. They want to stall. Still, she ordered the launch of their own REB. The rendezvous occurred in the center of the bay, 2 boats bobbing on gray water, mid-commanders speaking in firm, diplomatic tones. No translators, no politics, just 2 professionals trying to prevent war. The exchange was brief. The Chinese representative offered a veiled assurance. They would reposition if the Australians also agreed to de-escalate. Mitchell pushed back, refusing to retreat from international waters, but offering a compromise. She would hold her position, power down targeting systems, and await Allied arrival. An unspoken agreement was struck. The Chinese boat turned back. So did the Australians. When Mitchell returned to the bridge, Harris asked, "Do you trust them?" She replied, "No, but I trust the clock, and I trust the Reagan battle group to get here before anyone changes their mind." 2 hours later, the horizon broke open with silhouettes, American destroyers, cruisers, and aircraft, flanked by the looming presence of the USS Ronald Reagan. The shift in atmosphere was immediate. The Chinese ships began drifting back, not in panic, but in quiet resignation. The balance had returned. Aboard the Nanchang, Admiral Lee watched the arrival of the Americans with narrowed eyes. His mission was complete. He had demonstrated strength, tested the Australians, and signaled China's resolve. But he also knew the limits. War was never the objective. Influence was. As the sun set that day, the Warramunga sailed alongside the American flotilla, no longer alone. The crisis had passed, not with missiles, but with maneuvers and words sharpened like knives. Mitchell stood on deck, the breeze tugging at her collar. She knew it wasn't over. It never really was. This was the new normal, a chessboard with warships for pawns, and the whole world watching the next move. "Let's write our report," she said, "and hope we never have to live through another one." But even as she said it, the radar blinked once more. Another contact, another game, another story beginning.